come up with. So thank you. So Sue, when you get a chance, take over the controls and I'll let you lead everybody through whose name you're calling. And when we're done, if anybody didn't get a chance to send Sue information and has something that they just want to hold up to the camera at home, feel free to do that. I'll give you a little time. So Sue, it's all yours.
Okay, this is Ann Molina.
Okay, Mike Thomas and I actually copied the jig that we saw last month. So I did a lot of experimenting with it, you know, with different shapes of wood, different bits, using the different height of the platform, and then also the different position of the platform. There's so many things that you can do, and even with paint or without paint. But this was a mesquite box that I made, and then I just did a little bit of detail on the top. And I think the next picture will show that when I did this, it's just a tiny bit below center. So it kind of gives it a neat look right there. And then the next one, okay, so these two were different things that I tried. The hedge on the left was just interesting because of the growth rings in the wood. And then the other one was just experimenting with using the indexing in different ways. And then the last one there, that one was a piece that I had turned before that I had put up on my shelf because it was just ugly. And I thought, well, that would be a great piece to experiment with. So Mike and I put it on the lathe. I cut out I don't know if it was the big cuts or the smaller ones first, and then thought, well, that would look neat if it were painted. So then I went back and I painted it and then recut the big cuts, and then came back later in between those and then cut a shallower, shorter cut in there. And I thought it just turned out kind of neat. That's it.
Okay, this is Anthony.
It's time to talk?
Yeah. Go ahead right now. This is the challenge. This is my walnut box I made. I put the apple in there for scale. This was a piece of wood that I picked up in the shop. Somebody had cut it off of something else and thrown it away. And I didn't recognize that it had a bunch of cracks in it when I first started to turn it, and discovered later it was. And once I found the cracks, I decided this would be my, what do you call that? My challenge piece, because I had to do surface decorations on it. And so I cut these with a, what do you call it? A V gouge. And then I used a file to dress them up a little bit. And then Sue told me to use fingernail polish. And I got this at the dollar store. At the top of it, well, let's go to the next frame. The top of it, that little piece, the Evishon, is made out of manzanita. The rim on the box is about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little more. But I started cupping in those tops. I used to undercut things a lot with a nice square edge, but you can't put anything in the box and get it out very easily with your fingers. And so this is a smooth surface on the inside so that you can just pull things out with your fingers. I didn't measure it. I don't know how big it is. That's all.
And this is Chris Coyne.
Okay, so this isn't pretty, but I did want you to realize that I did put the board together. I got it mounted up and realized that I don't have enough distance between my spindle and my bed to get me much opportunity. But it ended up, Sue, if you can go to the next slide. So that's just showing that I did use my indexer, and I do have even lines down through there, but I was doing this all pretty cheaply with a Dremel tool and a router bit that fit in the Dremel tool. And it just turned out that when I'd lay my Dremel tool down, it would ride right on that rest. You can see where I have kind of burned in one area when it would spin, but that gave me a depth gauge and it gave me a straight line to work off of. So the only thing I really accomplished was taking a round spindle that I'd turned out of that flute wood and put some spires on it. But I was excited that I'd followed the steps. Sue, I think there's another one that just shows the bottom side. I had to tap a 1/2 inch hole in there so that I could
think we're
hold.
past yours.
Yeah, we're past now. I had to tap a 1/2 inch hole in the bottom so that I could put the post into. I also bought a nut that I was going to secure into the bottom and see if that gave me a little bit more sturdiness with the Dremel tool and with the base there into the post that goes into your tool rest holder. So ultimately, I did make the device. It wasn't perfect. I did try it out. I didn't do it on a project because I didn't get anything that I thought was clean enough as an end result. But I did appreciate the demonstration and truly took scrap wood to put it together. So it was a pretty fun project, and that's it.
Chris, there is in Thingiverse, there is a holder for Dremel.
Oh, okay. My problem was I was getting above center and I couldn't go far enough down with my post. It wouldn't go down far enough to get me at center. So I'd be working always above center if I was raising the Dremel off of that bed at all. So I was a little bit limited, and I'm on a MIDI lathe that didn't give me much room variance there, but it was fun to just pursue and kind of see that how easily it could be accomplished. I did appreciate that.
Okay, this is Mark Turner.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend last month's demonstration, so I misunderstood exactly how elaborate you wanted it to be. So this, I thought it was more, a different, something that I hadn't used any way before for a finish, and I put epoxy on this.
So can you increase the image?
There we go. So what I did with this is it's a piece of walnut that hollowed out a couple of burls that were on, well, one burl and then a branch on it. There were a lot of cracks in there that I wanted to preserve. And so I figured epoxy would be the best way to do that. And it came out, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting, but it's not as elaborate as what we've seen earlier because I misunderstood, just having read what the challenge was, that, we were to use different bits and tools and so on. So I just basically hollowed this out and preserved various cracks that were there with the epoxy.
And that's another angle.
I think it was a pretty open interpretation, Mark, so you did fine. And that's an interesting approach. I've never seen it used, the epoxy used as a surface material like that.
Yeah, it was fun.
This is Mike Thomas.
Still down here at Mission Control, and yeah, these are two pieces I did. There's a wall. I've never turned a pencil cup in my life, and I need one. So that's what the one on the left is, the walnut pencil cup. The flute's in there. Pretty cool, but that was actually the one on the right we did first. Did this with Ann in her shop with the router jig. And this was a piece of, I don't know what it is, soft maple or something. And roughed out the form, cut some flutes in it. Didn't look very good. So she got some black paint and painted it, and then we cut it again and those flutes came alive, and then we turned the top and hauled it out. So that was my challenge entry. Oh, that's for the show and tell. That's the base for the router jig. The problem here was, I don't have a welder, and I couldn't find anybody else had a welder. So we tried to figure out how you put that 1-inch post on that piece of 3/16 steel. So go to the next frame. I drilled out the post on my lathe and tapped it. And then if you go back to that first original photo, Sue.
That one?
Had a bolt, nope, no. Had a bolt, a flathead hex bolt that drilled the hole through the center, and then that screw taps into the end of the post. So for the next one, or one after the next one, that's what it looked like. So that was the base for the platform. And then the next photo. Oops.
You had two photos that came through that did not show up when I tried to display them. And I don't know what kind of file your video was, but my machine couldn't identify it.
It was an iPhone. So anyway, it worked. It's rock solid. It works great. And gosh, we put weight on that thing and moving it around. It's infinitely adjustable. It worked really, really well. So that was kind of my show and tell part.
Okay, this is Rick Bywater.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
We hear you now, Rick.
All right. Well, so this is, I've done about 5 of these boxes. There's 4 different epoxy pours on this. The top has redwood burl. Then there's a ring, which is African blackwood. Then there's hazelnuts that are poured in epoxy. Then the whole thing is turned cherry, and the top black part is carved with a high-speed, kind of like a high-speed Dremel tool that I use. And I was trying to sort of match the curvature of the hazelnuts, so to speak. The bottom, and also that is epoxy as well, but it's a different type of epoxy than the top. The black, and then the bottom part is West Systems epoxy that is, I use filler, and that allows me to be able to carve the epoxy very easily and then also paint it. And so if you go to the next slide, Sue, there you can, and what I've been experimenting with and have gotten very good at is hand chasing epoxy threads. And so that happens to be 16 TPI, and I turned that upper black piece that I've carved. That was so precise that I can actually slide that off and back on, and that is how I was able to do the piercing so accurately. I pierced right through it, and I painted it, and then I put it back on, and that saved a lot of time. And so then the next slide just shows the bottom, and so I guess I didn't give you a picture of the inside, but inside of the box, there again, it's cherry, but I used a hard maple chuck block to glue it to when I was turning it. And so I decided to keep that on because I didn't want to part that completely off, and then you would see that green epoxy edge. So I painted that with a gesso and then signed it and then just finished it, and it turned out wonderful. I've got the other 4 that I want to talk about at the next demo, as well as other epoxy works that I've done. But
that was something I was going to mention, Rick. For those of you who don't know, Rick has volunteered to be our first live demo in over a year, and he will be demonstrating resin techniques and stuff for us next month live from the shop. So Rick, that's a gorgeous piece. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
And we have a pressure port in the club.
Good. We'll get that out and show everybody. I'm going to actually bring mine down to the club, and I think, you know, I'm still trying to develop this demo. I noticed that Anthony ran a little long in his demo, and I might need to do that as well. You know, we'll see how things go, but I think it'll be very informative for people who have not ever worked with epoxy. It takes it to the next step. I mean, Don Frank did a good job a couple of years ago explaining the different types of epoxy and so forth. So let's kind of take it to the next step and see what happens, and hopefully it'll be a good demo for everybody.
We're looking forward to it, Rick. Thank you.
And this is Rick Tucker.
Yes, this is a piece of ash, and it's got, I colored it with the black dye and then sanded it and then put on the blue dye. But as far as the routing, this is a true spherical router cut. So I was able to make a wheel and hooked it to the router side so that it turned the wheel as I moved the router. I took an aluminum plate and put it in between the chuck and the headstock, and I had a wood pulley screwed to it with a weight on one end and the other end hooked to the router slide.
That sounds like it may be a future demonstration in and of itself.
Okay, I think that's our collection there. So we'll stop share and switch
Okay.
directories.
If there's anybody that has a challenge piece that they didn't get pictures to Sue, now would be the time to unmute yourself and say something, and we'll show it up on the screen if we can. All right, I don't hear anybody, so let's move on then. Sue, we'll go on to our show and tell for this month.
Okay, this is Anthony Harris.
Anthony, is that the same apple?
Yes, it is. Yeah, this is a salt and pepper shaker. It's the tornado shaker, so it's got the little, so you can go back and forth between the 3 frames, I think. Each one of them is that same little shape, and the inside is divided, so there's 2 chambers. And so the way the tornado shaker works is you lift it up quickly and all the condiment goes to the top of the chamber, and then some of it falls down the little hole that's drilled in the stoppers. And so it's kind of fun. It was to be able to put salt and pepper in the same shaker. I got the idea from Mike. He was making those pepper mills, and he used the handle on one of them and made it a salt shaker. And so he made two of them, right? They fit in the same thing. And so this is the same thing I did. That's all. Body is cherry. What do you call it? Pepper goes in the black one and salt goes in the boxwood one. That's all.
Yeah, this is Chris Coyne.
Nothing really that spectacular here other than the fact that this wood, it is a piece of sycamore that I let go it sat outside for about 3 years for waiting for me to get to it. And by the time I did, the light colored part was so punky that I put it on the chuck, and the first chunk that I put on the chuck, I got a little catch, and it pulled it clear off of a face plate that I had 8 screws in. It just pulled it right out because the stuff was like balsa wood. I threw it in the trash, and about a month later, I returned to see that piece finished and put on the table, and I found out that it was Anthony that had taken it out and figured out a way to cut that soft wood in a direction that would keep it from tearing out. And with Anthony's help, I was able to salvage this piece and get it through all the way turned. I've got a few areas that show some tear out, but overall, not too bad. Sue, I think there's a couple other pictures there. And then the inside, I had some occlusion there at the bottom of it. I didn't even try to fill it, but had a lot of color and a lot of things going on in it. So I hated to throw it away. And I tell you, without Anthony's tutelage through how to make a cut off of that soft of wood, I never would have gotten through it. So thanks, Anthony. And that's my piece for this month.
Chris, may I interrupt real quick? There was a winner of the challenge drawing. That was the 2 $10 craft supply gift certificates. And that winner was Rick Tucker.
All right, Rick, way to go.
Great, thanks.
Now we can talk you into demonstrating that next time.
Yeah, this is Mark Turner.
Are you muted, Mark?
Yep, sorry. This is kind of a different take on a segmented bowl. I took ash, walnut, and plywood, and then made it was, I think, a 8x8 cube. And then I glued that up. I cut it about 2 inches in, turned it 90 degrees, re-glued it, then waited another day, cut it at a different 2 inches off of it, turned that 90 degrees from the opposite corner or the opposite side. And I had no idea what it was going to come out looking like, but it came out kind of interesting. Then just did the finish was a mixture of linseed oil, denatured alcohol, and shellac. And then I just used the Beal wheel and carnauba wax on the outside, but it's kind of interesting and it holds a bunch of candy.
It's fun to see the horizontal lines meet the vertical lines, and the vertical lines all look wavy because of the shape of the bowl.
Right.
Cool.
Okay, and then we have Rick Tucker.
Okay, this was kind of a fun little piece. When I pour resin, I didn't want it to go to waste, so I took a plastic cup and I stuffed it with scraps of wood. And if I have some leftover resin, I would just pour it in there. And so it finally filled up. And so this is my pop art piece. All different kinds of wood in there. I thought it turned out kind of fun.
Very nice. It's
A
beautiful.
little bit of everything. straight lines turn wavy with all the ripples on the outside. So saving resin. Part of the resin came from this bowl. This is a Japanese maple root ball, and it's got some spalding in it. And I cast it in blue and gold and black resin. And then I finished it with a resin finish, clear resin. You can go to the next slide.
That's gorgeous.
Now this has been a project. Some
Does it
spalding
have a
in it.
little bit of translucence where it lets the light come through a little bit?
This is thick enough, not much light.
Okay. Still,
Rick,
it's gorgeous.
how did you do it so shiny?
Like I said, it's got clear resin as on the outside. I polished it to begin, or sanded it, and then used Yorkshire grit and polished it, and then it's got 3 coats of clear resin on the outside and inside.
And that's the collection for tonight.
All right, again, if anybody has a show and tell they want to show in front of their screen instead of having if you didn't get a chance to send Sue a picture, unmute yourself and talk up. All right, I'm not hearing anybody. So I think that then is it for the show and tell and the challenge this month. Anthony, I want to thank you again for coming together and giving us a demo on the spheres. It was interesting because I had been through Kevin's sphere demonstration, and this is a totally different kind of take on it, but very, very interesting. I'm going to have to try that cup chuck thing. There are some plans, I think, in the works that Sean is kind of working with the Woodworkers Guild on for a Christmas toy making program that they're trying to put together. So more information will come on that later in the year. I can't think of anything else. Does anybody else have anything they want to share here before we call an end to the meeting? And I appreciate all of you for showing up and supporting us through the Zoom meetings. And I hope to see a lot of you in person next month. And for the ones I don't see in person, I'll look for you in the little squares on the monitor screen.
Hey, Chris, do you
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
do you want to do a reminder for the picnic?
Yes, excellent. This Saturday, I'm on the right month on this one. This Saturday, the 19th, starting at 10 a.m. The club will provide the burgers and dogs and buns and condiments and plates and things. So the members usually just are showing up with side items or desserts. So Mike Thomas, I'll be getting your jalapeno poppers going this week, so you'll have them ready for next week. All right, for this Saturday. Saturday at 10 o'clock till whenever at Shawnee Mission Park, Shelter House number 3. I think another email just went out on that, but if you have
Shelter House 6.
I apologize. It's Shelter House 6, and I think I had it wrong in my notes too, because in my mind it's Shelter House 3. But it's Shelter House 6. It's down by the dam. Just look for the old guys flipping burgers, right? Right, Mike? You and I. All right. So I hope to see everybody there. It's usually a fun event, and like I say, that the shade and the air off the water, even on hot days, it's a pleasant time underneath that shelter. So hope to see everybody, and looking forward to coming to you live from the shop next month. So Thank you all. See you next month.
Good job, Chris. Good job, Anthony. I had a good time.
Yeah, very good.
Great job, Anthony.
Yeah, it worked out well.